MAUDE wasn't just a sitcom, it was a cultural grenade disguised as laughter. When it exploded onto television in 1972, America wasn't ready for a woman who spoke louder than her husband and never asked permission to exist. But when the applause faded and the studio lights went dark, something far more unsettling followed. One by one, the cast members who brought MAUDE to life faced illness, isolation, heartbreak, and quiet endings the audience never saw coming. Fame didn't protect them, it magnified old wounds and left scars hidden behind reruns and laugh tracks. Today, as we look back at the MAUDE cast then and now, we uncover who survived and who didn't. And some of these endings are far more haunting than the show ever was. At the center stood B.E. Arthur, towering in both stature and presence. Born in Brooklyn, New York in 1922, she was already 50 when she became Maude Findlay, a role that transformed her into a television icon overnight. On-screen, she was fearless. Off-screen, she carried a lifetime of isolation. Growing up unusually tall, B learned early what it meant to be stared at, mocked, and misunderstood. Home offered little refuge. Emotional distance replaced warmth, forcing her to sharpen intellect and sarcasm as armor. That armor never fully came off. Her first marriage collapsed under pressure and poverty, reinforcing her belief that intimacy required sacrifice of independence. Her second marriage to Gene Saks lasted nearly 30 years and produced 2 adopted sons, but success only widened the emotional gap. As she moved between All in the Family, MAUDE, Broadway triumphs like Mame, and later The Golden Girls, exhaustion replaced connection. She later admitted marriage felt less like partnership and more like constant negotiation. While audiences saw confidence, B privately battled depression and profound introversion. She avoided Hollywood social life, clinging instead to routine and solitude. Years of heavy smoking quietly destroyed her health. Even as she found renewed fame with the Golden Girls, her body weakened. In 2009, B.E. Arthur died in Los Angeles from lung cancer complications. She was cremated, her ashes scattered at sea. Her legacy lived on, not just in television history, but in her decision to leave much of her estate to homeless LGBTQ+ youth, turning private pain into protection for others. Beside her stood Bill Macy, born in Massachusetts in 1922, playing Walter Findlay, the perpetually strained husband. His quiet resignation resonated because it mirrored his life. Raised during the Great Depression, security was never guaranteed. Responsibility arrived early. His career crawled forward through cab driving, stage rejection, and financial anxiety. Early marriages failed under that weight. When MAUDE finally brought recognition, it also brought typecasting. He was known, but narrowly. Roles in The Jerk and My Favorite Year offered brief resurgence, but the industry moved on. Bill Macy died peacefully in Los Angeles in 2019 at 97. His life ended quietly, much like it had been lived, steady, restrained, and largely overlooked. Then there was Rue McClanahan, born in Oklahoma in 1934, who played the warm, free-spirited Vivian Harmon. Her laughter suggested ease, but her childhood was marked by poverty and volatility. A father battling alcoholism made fear routine. Humor became her shield. Love never brought stability. 6 marriages came and went, each leaving her more exhausted. Even as her career expanded through MAUDE, Mama's Family, and later The Golden Girls, personal peace remained elusive. In 1997, breast cancer forced a brutal reckoning. Later came heart surgery and a stroke that affected her speech. Still, she worked. Still, she endured. Rue McClanahan died in New York in 2010 after suffering a cerebral hemorrhage. No public funeral followed. Her life closed quietly, defined by resilience rather than comfort.
Conrad Vane, born in Alberta, Canada in 1923, brought calm authority to Dr. Arthur Harmon, the ideological counterweight to MAUDE's fire. On screen, he projected certainty and balance. Off-screen, his life was shaped by displacement, restraint, and long-delayed stability. His formative years unfolded under the shadow of global conflict, where military service arrived before personal dreams. Duty came first, desire waited. That pattern followed him into adulthood, carving discipline into his character while quietly postponing fulfillment. Stability came cautiously, almost reluctantly. His marriage to Monica Sloan endured for decades and produced 3 children, yet endurance did not mean ease. Long stretches of stage work, travel, and television schedules created absences that strained family bonds. Even as success arrived through MAUDE and later Different Strokes, time at home was often traded for professional relevance. Fame offered recognition, not rest. As age advanced, the industry's attention drifted, roles thinned, silence lengthened. After the death of his wife, isolation deepened into something heavier than solitude. It was the quiet accumulation of sacrifice finally settling in. When Conrad Bain died in California in 2013, he left behind a legacy defined not by spectacle, but by composure earned through restraint. Adrienne Barbeau, born in Sacramento, California in 1945, embodied generational rebellion as Carol Trainer, Maude's fiercely independent daughter. Her real life mirrored the instability she portrayed. A fractured childhood forced early adaptability, but it also planted a lasting fear of abandonment. Confidence became performance, resilience became necessity. Her marriage to filmmaker John Carpenter coincided with career momentum, but creative imbalance and relentless schedules fractured the union shortly after the birth of their son. Suddenly, she was balancing motherhood and ambition alone. Cancer later tested her body and resolve, forcing a confrontation with mortality she met without spectacle. She survived and chose autonomy. Writing, selective acting, and creative control replaced chasing approval. Adrienne Barbeau didn't retreat from the spotlight. She reshaped it on her own terms. British actress Hermione Baddeley, born in England in 1906, didn't just steal scenes as Mrs. Nell Nugent, she detonated them. Every sharp line, every vulgar joke carried the weight of survival. Behind the outrageous humor was a woman shaped by early loss and emotional instability. The death of her father forced her into adulthood too soon, while financial hardship stripped childhood of safety. Comedy became her armor, loud enough to drown out fear. But marriage offered no refuge. 2 unions collapsed under betrayal and volatility, reinforcing a belief that intimacy came at a cost. As age advanced, heart disease and repeated strokes followed her relentlessly. Even while working, her body was failing her. When Hermione Baddeley died in 1986, she left behind no great fortune, only proof that survival itself can be a legacy. Esther Rolle, born in Florida in 1920, brought quiet authority and moral gravity to Florida Evans. Raised as one of 18 children in crushing poverty, survival came before childhood. Long days of labor replaced play, carving discipline and seriousness into her spirit. That gravity followed her into adulthood and onto the set of MAUDE and later Good Times, where she famously clashed with producers over dignity and realism. She refused to reduce black family life to caricature, even when it cost her professionally. Diabetes slowly weakened her body, demanding constant endurance. When Esther Rolle died in 1998, she was remembered not for compliance, but for integrity. For Brian Morrison, fame arrived before emotional grounding. Born in Pasadena, California in 1961, he played Philip Trainer, often silent, often overlooked, much like his real life would become. Childhood unfolded under studio lights rather than stability. As adolescence arrived, opportunities vanished, identity fractured. He stepped away quietly, choosing obscurity over the pressure of having peaked too soon. Character actor J. Pat O'Malley, born in England in 1904, appeared briefly as Bert, but his career spanned decades. Disney voice work, television staples, and constant employment defined his life. Fame never followed, but endurance did. He died in 1985 from heart disease, a familiar face history rarely paused to name. Marlene Warfield, born in Queens, New York in 1941, brought piercing intelligence and controlled intensity to Victoria Butterfield. Her presence was sharp, unsettling, and impossible to ignore. Yet behind that force was a career defined not by security, but by pressure. Opportunities arrived inconsistently, recognition without protection. Each role demanded depth, discipline, and emotional exposure, but rarely offered stability in return. Even as her performances drew respect, the ground beneath her never stopped shifting. Personal life provided little refuge. Responsibility, isolation, and expectation pressed inward, while success remained conditional. When cancer entered the story, it did so quietly, stripping away strength rather than spectacle. In 2025, Marlene Warfield died, leaving behind a legacy built on intensity rather than comfort, a life spent proving worth without ever being assured of it. Finally, Elizabeth Fraser carried the weight of endurance into her role as Lorraine.
Her sharp humor and weary honesty reflected a life shaped by reinvention. Twice divorced and raising children alone, stability was never guaranteed. Each chapter demanded adaptation, new roles, new identities, new ways to survive. Acting offered purpose, but not relief. The strain of constant resilience accumulated silently, carried in the body as much as the spirit. When heart failure claimed her life in 2005, it marked the end of a journey defined not by triumph, but by persistence. Elizabeth Fraser didn't break, she endured, worn, weathered, and still standing to the end. Time changes everyone, but for the cast of MAUDE, it left scars no one saw. Behind the laughter were broken marriages, illness, and quiet endings. If these stories moved you, like, share, and subscribe for more untold television legacies. Thanks for watching.